Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is an information video really because I get asked an awful lot about how do I do some research on orchids. So I'll just go over the sort of things I do, and I appreciate if you're watching this on a small screen you're not going to be able to read much as far as actual writing is concerned, so I'll talk over what I'm doing. The first thing I'll have a go at, and this is totally random so it might not work, and that's what we're up against, is when you've got a no ID plant and you want to try and find out what it's called. Well, Google Images sometimes will get a hit, but not always. For example, on Psidium white with red spots. Let's try that. Okay, that will give you all sorts of stuff there, but what you're after is images. So for more images, just click on more images. Now, as I said, you might not get a hit, but you do get choices. You do get to look at some. Now, a lot of these will just be photos posted on people's personal websites and won't even have a name against them. Yeah, some of them are stock photos for the internet and things like that. So you might be lucky, you might not. As I say, some of them may have names, some of them may not, but you can look through and see if you come across something close to what yours looks like, and then open it up and, you know, see if it is the one you've got. The description, the more precise it is, the closer you might get. I mean, I put white with red spots. Well, you know, there's a lot of those on there are not white with red spots for a start. So it's potluck. You may be lucky, yeah, you may not. And as I said, a lot of them won't have names on, but you know, you get to have a look and see what's around. I mean, there's a white one with red spots. That one's got a name. Trouble is, some of the quality of these is not excellent, shall we say. But that one's got a name to it. It's called Speckled Spire Shorty. And the other thing you can do is sometimes the picture will give you, like that, a website. The person who's selling that. And if you go there, you might get a better description. Yeah? You may not. As I said, it doesn't always work. Cat layer. What should we have? Yellow. Let's see if I can spell. Yellow I got there. Yellow with red lip. Not my favourite, but yeah, and then you get images and you get to look through. And some of these may have names, some of them may not. So, but you at least get to see something that, you know, I mean, this was a much better hit as far as yellow with red lip. That, you know, that's what's come up in the main. There's some oddities in there, there's some oranges and things. But it gives you a start point, and you may be lucky. But with hybrids, quite honestly, certainly with Cattleyas, there are so many. So many. You know, I mean, there's one with an actual name. Yeah. So, I mean, you've got an actual name there. That might be your one. Might not. So that's trying to find a no ID hybrid, and good luck with that, because most of the time you will probably fail. Right. Let's move into. How do I find out how to look after an orchid? I know its name, but I can't find out anything about it. Well, I've got a site that I use. Let's go to hybrids first. I use this site, bluenanta.com. And we'll start with, we'll take a classic example. My recent purchase, the Dendrobium Frosty Dawn. So we'll put in Dendrobium Frosty Dawn. Okay. Now it's come up with options for a start. Yeah, I mean there's a Phalaenopsis frosty dawn on the list. Yeah, but basically it will come up with anything that's got frosty in it, or dawn and dendrobium and some others. You know, so you know. But at the top of the list there is dendrobium frosty dawn, registered in 1997. So if you click on that, that brings up the details. Now, this doesn't always work as well as this. This is a popular cross. So the first thing you're going to get is a load of photos of frosty dawn. And now you can see why there's so much variety. Yeah, these are all frosty dawn. Yeah, but then when you get lower down, you get the detail. And frosty dawn is effectively a cross between dendrobium dawn marie over this side and dendrobium lime frost. Lime frost is a combination of these two species in this case. Yeah, and dawn marie is a combination of these two species, so you get some history with the parentage. And then what you also get is the actual species that have gone into that cross in any shape or form. Yeah, so we're down at the lowest level now, and boy that writing's small. So in amongst this we've got 50% of dendrobium cruentum, which I've never heard of. So if you take that text off of there, we'll start a new tab, put that name in. It's been abbreviated to den, so we'll make that dendrobium to get a better search. Okay, now we're looking at one of the species that goes into this. Yeah, and when I'm looking up a species on my list of stuff that comes up, the one I look out for is www.orchidspecies.com. This can normally give you some pretty good information, and a lot of the time a reasonable picture. Right, I'll have to read this out. I'm not reading all of it because some of it is gobbledygook in the descriptions of the canes and the leaves. It comes up with expressions I don't even understand. But basically it comes from Myanmar, Thailand and Vietnam as a small to medium size hot to warm growing. Now when you see hot to warm growing, it means it's pretty temperature tolerant and is found in a variety of temperature ranges. Yeah, so not so temperature fussy. That's what that expression's really trying to say. It's an epiphytic species from elevations below 1,000 meters. So it's up the warm end of intermediate into the warm grower, despite sorry, this one actually says hot to warm growing. So the fact that it grows below those elevations confirms that. And it grows in open forests where it's found on smaller trees. Well, if it's growing in open forests, it's going to get quite high light, isn't it? This is just interpretation of the words that are there. You know, it's a description of where it's found. It hasn't mentioned the word light, but you can make an assumption. If it's found in open forests, it's going to get more light. Yeah, and then it gives this description of the pseudobulbs and stuff like that, which I said half the time that's gobbledygook. Bloom season is in the spring through fall. Well, that means it can bloom most of the time. Faintly fragrant, long-lasting flowers. We like the word long-lasting, although it is relative. So, yeah, and needs a definite rest from water and fertilizer in the winter months. So on that species, if I was growing that species, I've got virtually everything I need. Reasonable light, doesn't like to get cold, and needs a rest from water and fertilizer in the winter months. Not a cold winter rest, note. Comes from a place where it doesn't get cold ever. Yeah, so a fair bit of information gleaned from the words in there. Yeah, so that's that one. What else did we get then? We got Dendrobium formosum. That one I do know. So if we come back to here and put in Dendrobium formosum, and again I would immediately look for orchid species. And that will come up here. Yeah. Again, a nice picture. Nice nickname as well. The beautiful giant flowered dendrobium. Well, yes, it is. Found in Assam, Bangladesh, Eastern Himalayas, India, Nepal, Sikkim, loads. Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam, at elevations of 900 to 2,300 meters. This is very temperature tolerant, because below 1,000 meters in a lot of those areas, that's pretty warm. But up to 2,300 meters, you're starting to get up in the cool areas. It says it's a small to medium sized, warm to cold growing, where you can get the cold growing bit from the elevation. If it's found up there, it's going to be pretty cold. It says it's an epiphyte, blah 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 blah, that blooms in the fall to winter, so that's a late season bloomer. 1 to 4 fragrant flowers that arise from nodes near the apex. And it's even got a note in here, this species does well in a wood slat basket. Yeah, well, that's a little bit of personal information that's been added in, I suspect, by the owner of the site or one of their mates or something like that. But you get the general idea. So far we've got a warm to hot growing orchid that grows at low elevations that gets good light. We've now got Formosum, which is pretty temperature tolerant and can grow quite cool. Yeah, so we're getting there. Now the last one I've never heard of, so I'm going to cut that text out rather than try and type it in. I've got to learn how to say it before I can type it. Right, so we'll take the last one in the mix and we'll stick that one in. Just change the den dot to den Dendrobium, get a better hit if you put the full name in. Okay, and again look for orchid species. Scarbrilingue, or something like that, if you can read it. The rough-lipped Dendrobium. Small size, warm to cool growing, it's that expression again, warm to cool growing. At elevations of 600 to 1,200 meters, so not cold, but can grow a little bit cooler than some others, but it can also grow pretty flipping warm if it's down at 600 meters. Blah 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 blah. Leaf sheaths covered with black hairs. Basic description. Blooms from winter till summer. Yeah, so quite a long potential blooming season. And the inflorescence come from the apex of leafy canes and the lower nodes on leafless canes. Scented, waxy, long-lasting flowers. We like that. And then it says blooming is initiated by giving the plant a cool, dry winter rest, followed by copious water and fertilizer after the new growth has appeared in the spring. That's an elaborate way of saying, you know, cool, dry winter rest and feed and water well when it's growing. So those are the three elements of this particular Frosty Dawn hybrid, one of which can grow quite cool, and the other two are warmish end of intermediate, I'd interpret that as, although one of them can grow quite a bit warmer than that. And one of them likes the higher light. The other two don't mention the light levels, but given the countries that they're coming from and the fact that it doesn't mention open forests, these are probably tropical forest growers, the other two. So, coming back to this one then, you know, the species that went into this, we've had a look at all three of them, yeah? And we've also had a look at the site orchid species as we went along. Now this, let's just get back to the basic page on this one, wipe out whatever's in there. Now it will cater for things on your label that are wrong, like spelt wrong or incomplete words, because it has got a fuzzy match. Let's try Oncidium Twinkle. Well, obviously I meant twinkle, but I've put in twinkle and it says no matches found, but we could try a partial search and see what that'll come up, see what that comes up with. and there we've got Oncidium twinkle. Yeah, so it's managed to work out what I meant, because I obviously didn't mean Oncidium twinkle. So it's capable of correcting minor errors. So we've now got Oncidium twinkle, and as you can see, a shed load of pictures of the different forms of Oncidium twinkle. We've got the pinks in there, we've got the yellows, we've got the whites, yeah, we've got the lot. The only one I don't see is the orangey rusty coloured one, the cinnamon one, but nonetheless a selection. And then again we've got the parentage, and we've got Oncidium, I can't even pronounce that, Chirophorum, that looks like, and Oncidium sotoanum, the one I do know well. Yeah, and then the species ancestors are those two, because obviously twinkle is in fact a primary cross. The only thing that went into it were two species. So we'll do the same again. Let's cut that out, because I'm certainly not going to try and type that in. And then we'll go back to here and put that in there, but we will expand the ONC dot to Oncidium. Get a better hit. Go to orchid species again. Oh, that's a strange looking bloom, but nice big one to look at, I mean, yeah. The Columbia buttercup, one of the nicknames. So we're over the other side of the world now, found from Nicaragua to Colombia as a dwarf, cool to cold growing epiphyte in lower montane rainforests. Yeah, at elevations of 1,000 to 2,500 meters. Little note, often in full sun on larger branches. Yeah. Well, if it's a montane forest, a lot of the time you've got mist and fog. But if that ever clears, well, then you've got sunshine. Yeah. So yeah, a strange one that. Definitely a cold grower, or cool to cold. Blooms in the fall and winter. Blah blah blah. Densely many flowered, with waxy flowers, and some synonyms in there. So far our twinkle's got a cool to cold growing parent. Yeah. Now let's put in the other parent, which is Oncidium sotoanum. Well, I can type in because I've got it. Right, again we get loads of images and we look out for the orchid species. This doesn't, some of the rarer orchids or obscure ones, this doesn't come up with much. But in the main, people are not. This is nicknamed the bird's beak Oncidium. Can't really see that myself, but nonetheless. This is Northern Central American, cool to warm growing. Again, that means it's temperature tolerant. In humid forests at altitudes up to 1,500 meters. And it says it likes a semi-winter rest. So this likes a drier winter period. Doesn't mention a cold dry rest, it just means a drier winter rest. That's probably the part of the world where it doesn't rain much in the winter. Simple as that. And it may not be growing at that time of year, so keeping it wet wouldn't be a good idea. That's just general information. Not much else on this. And the individual has actually said, I mounted this species on cork and it thrives, many times blooming more than once a year. And then it's got the caution. This was something I found out. This orchid, for most of the last 200 years, has been known as Oncidium ornithorhynchum, which with recent studies has been found to describe a yellow flowered species from the Andean South American. Yeah? A new name was needed for the pink highly fragrant flowers that occur on this one, and the new name was Oncidium sotoanum. So this plant's been incorrectly named for about 200 years, and the original name referred to a yellow blooming Oncidium. So there we go. That's the sort of thing I get up to. This one, bluenanta.com, is brilliant for looking up details about hybrids, but you do need to know the name or somewhere near it. I'd have to load Facebook. What was it? Somebody on Facebook had got a plant with a tag and they couldn't find any reference to it whatsoever. I'll see if I can remember. It was, what was it? It was a dendrobium. Dendrobium. And it was something like U-bong, whoops, U-bong rainbow. That was what from memory, that's what was on the tag. So we'll put that in. We didn't get a match, but we'll have a look and see if we can get close. Right, so instead of U-bong rainbow, the closest thing I can see there is U-dom rainbows. Now the person thought it could possibly be a bigibbum type, from the information she got from who she got the plant from, I believe. So if we go into that one, let's see if see if the information backs it up. So the blooms look a little bit Dendrobium phalaenopsis type, but the species ancestors are many. So this has had a lot of hybrids combined together, sometimes probably going back and crossing against another species, but bigibbums in there, several antelope types, looking at the pictures. I'm not going to look them all up. So this looks like a combination of a bigibbum and some antelope types. Yeah. So, but that's all the information on that one. Not a lot. But nonetheless, the species ancestors are there, and you could then go away and look up each individual one to get a feel for how you might want to look after this particular hybrid. But always worth remembering that some things are dominant. Now this has got quite a few antelope types in there, and two types of bigibbum, two different variety names in there. So difficult to work out, but basically this one over here, Dendrobium bigibbum variety superbum, or superbum that would be pronounced, there's 61% of that in this one. Well, if you start coming over here, some of these antelope ones is 6%, 3%, so they're not dominant. The dominant species in here is bigibbum. So I would make an assumption based on that lot that I would look after it the way you would look after bigibbum. Yeah. All assumptions, but all based on smart guesses, I'll call them. Yeah. So anyway, those are the two main sites that I use. I must admit, if I've got a no ID hybrid, I tend to just leave it as that. I can't be bothered to make hit and miss guesses at what it might be called. But if I've got a name on a tag, I can go away and do a bit of work to try and find out how to look after it. So there we go. That's the sort of thing I get up to. And if people ask me, and I can be bothered, that's the sort of thing I would do. And I don't mind doing that for somebody else, but now I've shown you what to do, you can get on and do it yourselves. The information's out there. Yes, there are some assumptions based on, you know, longer term experience perhaps, but nonetheless that's the basic information that I'd be using to give advice if I didn't know in the first place, if you see what I mean. You can't know everything about every single orchid. That is physically not possible. Not even the judges are that good. But you know, the more common stuff that we come across in our sort of amateur collections, you can normally find out a reasonable amount. Anyway, that's it then. Thanks for dropping by. And as I said, if you've got a small screen, you won't see much of that at all, which is why I said the words as I went along. And I'll see you next time.